Not a
pupil.
toddler.
A what?
I'm a pupil. I want to believe that.
A pupil is a young one of the what? What is in that NIF cycle?
Oh, there's lava,
Butterfly.
then butterfly. But anyway, the memories I have is that the school I went to every Friday was swimming. So they would bring us here for swimming lessons. And what happened, I thought I'd learned enough, despite my instructor telling me, do not go to the deep end. So I tried to swim to the deep end, only to begin screaming for everybody that was around this hotel, yearning for help. Good, the trainer or the instructor was always there. So he jumped in and saved my life. When you talk about International Hotel, those are memories that come to my mind. I remember how I was drowning because I had not yet got enough experience to swim in the deep end, but I yearned to get there. Anyway, so much has happened, and let's begin by looking at some of the stories. You could have missed our bulletins. Okay. We could have missed... Priscilla, do you have any memories? I'm sure of this place you do.
Oh, you've not been here before? Well, of course, some of us, when I stand at hills like this, remember, it reminds me of those days we used to study about the 5 hills
of Kampala.
For me, and they used to tell us that in Muyenga, they have water tank hill.
Muyenga Tank Hill.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So for me, when I drive past Mukasa, Muyenga, Kabalagala, that is what I sort of like get into thought of. But of course, it's something quite interesting that, of course, we hear this morning at International Hotel.
An interesting thing also about Muyenga, those days, of course now new places have come up, but those days if someone said I stay in Muyenga, it meant some class of people there. But today we have Vantindas, Najera, Chihuahua.
No, but you see, Robert, even with the establishment of those places or localities, or probably as societies, you see, gold, you can't diffuse the same from oil. I can tell you that if you took a stroll drive around Muyenga, you sort of like feel more excited about the sceneries, the kind of houses you'll meet, the order and everything about it versus your places like Chisasi, Nigeria. And not that I have anything against those places, but as a matter of fact, all is gold. Have you taken a drive through Kololo versus the drive you take through Nigeria or Chisasi or Chira, or those places that you think that sort of like getting there into?
They have, I think, a bit of better planned environment.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
Entertainment places are not so
actually
they have that element of residential places. Whereas when you go to the Nigerias, you'll find here there is a bar, here there is sound. Those are good houses are there, but Muyenga and
tell me why you see trees like you see in Muyenga. Here people still have forests. I'm telling you. In Muyenga, you can imagine.
And so very soon a monkey will...
Something when you go even to Kololo. Yes, even when you go to Kololo, you meet a house that has over 30 trees in the compound. Show me that in your Nigeria, whatever places you're talking about. So clearly, you must attribute old with gold.
Talk about...
Ask Ruben about cars. If you want to talk about cars, you will talk about your Coronas, what, Chikumi, Chivina, whatever. Talk about a Peugeot. Those people who know 500, you know all those Peugeot. So basically, what I'm saying is, you have no idea.
There was a
what
Citroen.
car did you used to go into school?
Felix, do you remember Citroen? Citroen, a car that would park.
Yeah.
Don't blame
Go.
Talk about cars. You've just reminded me of a car. I don't know where those cars went. The Citroens. When someone parked, this car would have beat. The shocks then would go down.
What have you been? Is this the car you're talking about?
Yes!
That car was driven by my, like serious, like the Angaria. It is in those legions, Angaria.
Maybe I was lucky to, I remember the Citroen, I think, belonged to some of the Uganda premiers. It's called Nachirembeka Waligo. And they had kept, I think, from generation to generation. So it was still alive.
So when did you see it? Do you know when Nachirembeka was premier?
Not when he was premier.
Hey.
No, premier is just Alan Waligo.
But anyway, it's okay.
So I got to see that car. So when you would park, it would just
the shocks would go down.
Then, but all is gold. So if all is gold, then I'm gold, and that is one thing we should really be interested about. But today I saw something very interesting when I was coming in the morning. I saw a fuso full of jackfruit, and I asked myself, how how on earth, where do these people grow all this? Why are they selling it to the market?
But Robert,
because those days, there are things that you should not sell to get money. For example, this buga, nakati, the things that everybody had, jackfruit.
You see,
just move
the government has been advocating.
How old is Robert?
You see, those days, which days? But anyway, Robert, let me just say this. You see, the government has been pushing for commercialization of agriculture, and I think it should be something to quite excite us that we see probably jackfruit, a full sort of jackfruit going to the market. I think that's a very good thing. You must take a cognizance of that. Now, you must also realize that it is encouraging. Now, previously, jackfruit was not something for the market. Now, that was in the old order. But in the order where we need people to have commercial emancipation, commercial growth, and probably commercial leverage, you must push everyone. Look at Nakati. When you're driving through the roads of Matuga to Semuto, Gombe, Sanga, all that places, you notice that people are doing a lot of vegetable agriculture on the banks and in the swamps. Quite beautiful. So you must take cognizance of that it's good. So it's good that people have at least picked up interest in commercializing agriculture, and it makes quite vivid sense of the same.
Hello.
So, but anyway, we can't feel bad about it. I think it's a good thing. You can imagine whoever knew jackfruit would really, someone would get probably 1 million shillings.
And you know, they've talked about it in China. It's actually a hot cake. China, it's a very expensive fruit. And so Chinese are making a lot of money. Funny enough, they grow it here and then they export it to their country and make a lot of money out of it. Yeah.
Well, anyway, here we are. And of course, it is Friday. It is a day where we normally do outside. And we try to take you outside the field of the studios, try to get in contact with nature. Look at the beauty of the trees, the sounds of the birds, the breath. Tell me about that.
Fresh air.
Of course, it's Friday. We'll nevertheless go through our same drills. We'll take you through our local stories, which Robert is going to do with Priscilla. And later on, of course, we shall have a bit of our international stories. And after that, we'll dive into our newsreel. And of course, and the pace will keep on getting better. On and on. Yes, Robert.
Well, let's begin by looking at some of the stories, more so with the Electoral Commission, where yesterday it released the final results after tarring each and everything. Remember, there were some polling stations that had been left out. The Electoral Commission said the electoral malpractices in several areas across the country affected results in the final tally. The EC chairperson, Justice Simon Byabakama, however, said results from the omitted 83 polling stations would not in any way affect the overall winner. Following an outcry from a section of dissatisfied groups of the people over results of the just concluded presidential elections, the Independent Electoral Commission broke silence after 11 days. According to the Commission's chairperson, Justice Simon Byabakama, results from 83 polling stations with a total of 54,357 registered voters were omitted, including in the final tally, citing electoral malpractices. The 83 polling stations are among the 1,200 that had not been counted at the time of declaration. Byabakama cited districts like Wakiso, Mukono, Sironko, Kampala, Kotido, Bundibujo, Chotera, Rakai, Bukoma, Simbi, Yantonde, Soroti, Lamo, Kole, Gomba, Jinja City, and Zimbabwe as the most affected. According to the Electoral Commission chairperson, Justice Simon Byabakama, they have full details of whatever happened at each of the 83 polling stations in a number of polling stations there. He said they will later inform the public of what transpired. Byabakama, however, said that even if the affected areas had been added on later results of the winner would not have been overturned.
Members of Parliament have demanded an explanation from government regarding the fate of schools whose opening they say hangs in a balance. The concern comes amidst reports of continuous operations of international schools at expense of local institutions whose fate government is yet to decide. Kalungu West County Member of Parliament Joseph Sewungu wants this position clarified by government, something that the Prime Minister Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda has promised next week. Not even an explanation from the Prime Minister was enough to convince them. The members of parliament who were adamantly unimpressed by what they described as government laxity on school reopenings sought answers. These concerns come at a time commercial banks that had rescheduled loans for teachers in private schools are beginning to demand their arrears. Unconvinced by the explanation of the Prime Minister, the legislators demanded an explanation, and government closed schools operations in March last year due to COVID-19, a pandemic that the world continues to grapple with till date. The decision as to whether they will be able to reopen or not is an explanation Ugandans anxiously await on next week.
Away from the education sector in Parliament, we now return to court, where yesterday Chief Magistrate Court Mwanga 2 Esther Nsambu dismissed with cause an application where Fred Nyanzi dragged Muhammad Nsereko to court for what of court to issue an order of recount of the votes from 50 polling stations in Kampala Central recently. According to the magistrate Esther, the applicant based his evidence on mere say events without having enough evidence to present before court. Fred Nyanzi sent Amoren to court for want of court to terminate Muhammad Nseleko's victory as elected member of parliament for Kampala Central, saying the vote process had been merged with irregularities. Chief Magistrate Mwanga 2 Esther, after pursuing both sides' submissions, said this was not valid enough to call for a recount of the elections. According to Magistrate Esther, the applicant did not bring evidence in court to prove that his agents were chased from some polling stations, as he alleges. Court also noted that the applicant did not in any way prove to court with any evidence, but based his evidence on just mere say, which court cannot base on to grant his application. On this, court dismissed Fred Nyanzi's application with costs. Fred Nyanzi, the applicant, who disagreed with the ruling, vowed to apply after the court ruling. Muhammad Nsereko welcomed the verdict. Muhammad Nsereko was declared winner after garnering 16,998 votes against Fred Nyanzi's 15,975 votes, giving a difference of 1,022 votes.
JAMIL, MUKULU and 37 others accused persons have concluded taking plea on the 27 counts against them. However, they have all pleaded not guilty to the alleged offences. The session is taking place at Luzira Government Prison before the International Crimes Division Court. Meanwhile, Buganda Road Magistrate Court has declined to grant Pastor Siraje Semanda and Nabio Mukazi application where they wanted court to dismiss all the offences against them, saying that they are unconstitutional. On the 25th of January 2021, JAMIL, MUKULU and others 37 co-accused appeared before the International Crimes Division in Luzira Government Prison to kick off with the hearing of the charges against them. The session that has been taking place since Monday was yesterday concluded by court reading them the 27 charges against the accused persons, with all of them maintaining a plea of not guilty. It was during the same session that defense requested court to file some applications, including the one for torture, saying their clients were tortured during arrest, which court granted. On this, court adjourned to 15th March 2021 when it will deliver its ruling in these applications.
Away from court, we move to ISINGIRO district, where tear gas yesterday morning rocked Ndizi Town Council in Bukanga County, ISINGIRO district, as security battled the supporters of Dr. Moses Mpeire, who were in a procession heading to Rachtura to deliver their grievances to the president. The procession heading to Rachtura was disrupted by police and security organizations. Moses' supporters have requested President Museveni to intervene in Bukanga, a political issue, before the situation goes out of hand. By 8, supporters of Dr. Moses had started gathering in Ndizi town to ensure that they take their grievances to the president, but this was not possible because police could not allow them. The situation intensified by security forces responding to save businesses of people who had begun closing shops as the chase away of rowdy supporters who are protesting against the alleged impunity evidence and torture of some of the colleagues during the elections. The grieved group had planned to walk to Rakitura in Kuruhura district, where they wanted to meet President Museveni, but once police brought in tear gas, they dispersed. Well, as police refused to comment on the matter, the angry supporters maintained they just wanted to meet the president to intervene in their grievances.
Bamasaba from neighboring Kenya, cultural leader and traditional healers, among others, have converged in Maluku to have a final glance at the body of the former Bamasaba chief Omukuka II, Sir Bob Mushikori, who passed on early this month. Today's program started in a traditional way with a Bamasaba when an elder had passed on and a cultural leader in the society. The drums were sounded and the relatives joined in dancing before the portrait of the fallen Umkuka. In a special session for the Bamasaba Council, it was proposed that one of the roads in Mbale town be named after the Umkuka II as a way of remembering him. The matter was seconded by Bamasaba Council and agreed that it will be forwarded to Mbale City Authority for proposal. The first Omkuka, Wilson Wamimbi, said the fallen Omkuka was a loving man who worked for the people of Masaba. The traditional drums will continue to be sounded until the body is lowered into the grave today at St. Andrew's Cathedral for final mass and also burial in Bududa district tomorrow.
Oh, may his soul rest in eternal peace. And away from the Bamasaba losing their cultural leader, we now look at corruption in Uganda, where Transparency International has appealed to the Uganda government to step up its fight against corruption. The appeal was made during the release of a report on the country's corruption index. The report indicates that there has been a poor performance on the side of government to ensure or enforce laws in place in the fight against corruption. In this report, Transparency International Corruption Perception Index ranks Uganda second position among the corrupt countries in East Africa region. While the country's performance in the fight against corruption is declining day by day, according to the Corruption Perception Index 2020, civil society organizations are calling upon government to enforce possible laws that bring agents of corruption to book. The chairperson of Transparency International, John Mary Oboy, asked government to introduce rich retirement schemes to attract pace for unemployment population. The report recommends empowering stakeholders in the fight against corruption than introducing more units that cause duplication of roles. The Executive Director of Transparency International, Peter Wandera, said the creation of civic space will go a long way to enabling a condition to hold public servants accountable. Well, Priscilla, corruption.
Yeah,
Uganda being ranked second in East Africa among, when you're looking at most corrupt countries.
But of course, you look at also the efforts. If you want to talk about corruption in Uganda, you and me know that there have been a couple of efforts, and this is why we bring it down to the efforts have not been so sunk in society. We've seen the president walk. There's the Fande
civil society falling on participation.
IGG State Corruption Unit, the
participation report.
So this is what they are saying, that instead of these are all duplicating roles.
And the thing is, you see, we have seen time and again, and this is the dismay that we get even from our government or probably our leaders, that we desire the will to fight corruption, not those picky institutions you put in place. Chidabo head this, Naruoga, then Nasan, what that kind of, I find it quite loose.
So would you think
because the will is what we need to
packages would solve? Because this is what rich retirement packages.
You see,
that people know that even
in
after
Africa we don't retire. Yeah, those things are for the white man. In Africa we don't retire. You're working, you're having your businesses. Even at 80, you're putting up apartments and big.
Probably talking about retirement in terms of public service.
Even if it's public service, you're still, is corruption only in public service?
Exactly, but the thing is, in fact, whoever is suggesting that is also quite shallow. in my thought.
Okay.
Because what we should look at what induces corruption, and we have talked about the aspect of values. It starts somewhere, and that's where we should look at.
I do have a recommendation. Why don't they carry this team to go to Rwanda, maybe meet the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, and then he can give them how he has actually dealt with corruption. Well, at least he has brought those that are really corrupt to the forefront and dealt with them. So I think
it just takes the nerve.
It does take the nerve, and someone putting their foot down. However, when that happens, you know that it's going to be turmoil. Things are going to turn upside down. That is a hidden reason as to why we're just having it as a conversation, dilly-dally with it.
All of you guys were part of the crime, and then you're like, guess what, who are you? But anyway, talking about crime, and we'll be crossing over to our international stories. Now we'll be looking at Columbus police chief stepping back amid reforms and efforts after Andre Hill shooting. Now remember, there was a shooting in Ohio, that is in Columbus, and the chief of police in Columbus, Ohio, is stepping back following the death of Andre Hill, an unarmed black man who was shot and killed by police officer last month. Now in the city now conducting a national search for the RIP to replace the chief Thomas Quinlan, that is in Columbus. Mayor Mr. Andre Ginter did announce this Thursday. Now of course it's become clear to me that Chief Quinlan could not successfully implement the reforms and change that I actually expected and the people of Columbus. Now it becomes clear to me, and also that probably our security and the people in Ohio, Columbus, is not to the point of the expectation of the National Guard. Now of course also Gwinter did continue to mention that he also agreed to step back so that the city can move forward, and Columbus Public Safety Director Ned Peters also said that he and Ginter decided to go on in the new direction, seeking to have someone else to take them through their security of this place. So we'll be having at least, this is quite courteous for a leader in the institution of security to come back and say, well, I probably have failed in my execution, but nevertheless. Now, of course, again, crossing back to the African continent, we'll be looking at South Africa variant of virus detected in United States there. Now, health officials in the U.S. state of South Carolina did come out to announce the first known case of COVID-19 variant. Now, new variants of the coronavirus, first found in South Africa, Brazil, and the UK, are more infectious than the common strain. Now, health officials in the U.S. states that in the state of South Carolina announced on Thursday that the new South Africa variant of the coronavirus has been detected in 2 people in the United States of America. These are the first known cases and more infectious South Africa variant in the U.S. Now, officials say that there was no known travel history and no connection between the 2 cases, both in adults, and authorities did not release additional information for privacy reasons. However, the 2 cases suggest the South Africa strain is already spreading within local communities already there in the U.S. Well, of course, still looking at COVID in Africa, and Africa secures another 400 million COVID-19 vaccine doses. That is, it has been secured for the African countries through the Serum Institute of India and the African Center for Disease Control and Prevention. That is on Thursday. Now, with the new doses on the top of at least 217 million doses announced earlier this month from, that is, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, that is Johnson & Johnson, he did come out to say that I think we are beginning to make a very good progress. Africa CDC Director John Kweng-Song also told the reporters. Now, he said that new doses were announced in a meeting hosted by South African President on Wednesday. That is, an African CDC spokesperson said that at least 400 million doses are of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. As with the vaccine deals, there were no immediate details on the cost on how much people might pay per dose. It still hangs in the balance whether or not African people will be able to pay for these doses. It's quite tricky. I don't know, probably what they call a sweet sour. That's what I'm talking about. Probably it's what they call the sweet sour. We are happy, the doses are here. We're thinking, do we have to pay for this vaccination?
Why must we pay for the vaccinations? Are we the ones who bought corona?
Again, sweet sour.
Okay.
We have governments in place, but yes, Felix has a valid point. If we are paying for testing, if you're paying for testing, maybe it's a bit cheaper than
But
the vaccination. So.
yeah, by the way, if we're paying for testing.
But here's the thing.
Testing. So
you
that
see,
would mean
I've said time and again, even favor is not fair. So don't ever expect fairness anywhere in the world.
In Russia, they had a testing for about 2 million people free of charge. And, you know, just to curb and understand the dynamics demographically on where the peaks are of COVID-19. Yeah.
Definitely. But of course, speaking about countries like Russia, the extreme West and all this, they have built capacity to that extent. You see, if today we still having arguments of whether or not water is still expensive in a country, yet we have probably how many?
Yeah.
We still have, So now you're talking about
Yes.
something that is quite dynamic. You're talking about an infection that is a virus, for that matter. We're talking about vaccinations and all these kind of things. But again, it brings us back. You see, we've been talking about all these things, and the discussion goes back to the aspect of what we call a welfare economy. Now, when you have a welfare economy, it is about welfare of the population. Now, the discussions will definitely be sat on the bed, on a rock of welfare.
Yeah.
Where is my, where are my citizens? Where is my voter? Where is, now, in the reverse of the same here, you'll be surprised that even when the vaccine comes to Uganda, don't be surprised if the parliamentarians are the first ones to be vaccinated, the cabinet members. I'm telling you, I am telling you. Then, so,
but well, I beg,
you talk about, I'm telling you, and just Robert, and let me just finish on this. That is the pain we get. Okay, if you remember the inception of COVID, you remember that MPs were asking for money to go and do what? And they got 20 million for what or something like that?
Which they later refunded.
What do you mean they refunded?
Perhaps it was just a propaganda to make you think, but
that they had
really
returned the money.
refunded.
But anyway, so it's tricky, and as I've said, in the absence of a welfare economy, the people at the extreme or at the bottom of the prism.
But also, you've talked about the economy, Felix. You do see where the countries that are taking care of the effects of coronavirus in terms of testing and now vaccinations, they seem to be coming free to the masses, but it's it's being taken off their taxation that they have. So indirectly,
you don't pay taxes?
No, you pay taxes, but of course you don't pay taxes to the tune of UK, USA, Russia.
Actually, let me just tell you, I was going to say from you.
Shock me.
I know that would come into, but let me tell you, Ugandans, and I want you to research, pay taxes.
I'm not saying they don't pay taxes.
For example, people
I'm saying that for our government to consider that, they would have to press us somewhere, come up with some sort of taxation to bill us on,
how
and
best
then they
we can
give it
solve
back
this
to
on who
us.
gets the viruses on the vaccine is we look at who are the most vulnerable. Most of the countries, what they have done is they look at the most vulnerable groups. The elderly.
Even young people,
yes, but you know when
young
there is
people have died from
when there is scarcity,
I would want to hear
when there is scarcity,
you
look at when there is scarcity, you look at priority or most vulnerable, So COVID-19, the most vulnerable are the elderly and people that are working, the health workers, the frontline workers. So if there is scarcity, I want to believe a simple formula. If we get the vaccine, we're told in May, we're in Uganda. The first doses we get, let them go to the elderly and the medical workers. As we look at other population, more as resources come in and our resource envelope, maybe by then we'll even be able to get our oil and we have enough funds.
Dear elder, please, when you get on your vaccine,
Chidabo is vying for the elderly. The elderly.
He should have stood 2026.
They are the most vulnerable.
You and your people.
Statistics show.
Okay, as the young people, me and Felix, we'll stick in our corner, we'll stick to the ginger, we'll stick to the garlic.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, tamarind drink, and also hallelujah, ginger tea drink. Those are going to be our options for now. I mean, young people, let's just boost our immunity. When it comes, should it come your way, at least your immunity can be able to fight back the virus and you actually do not go down. But this is still Good Morning Uganda. It is a Friday, the sun is up, and while Felix was going through his international stories, me and Cheryl were thinking, oh, the plane, we've not seen planes in a long time. Like, you know, the usual drill. You know, on Entebbe Road, you even know the timetable at 2 2 a.m., you have at
7,
8 p.m. one. But today we've been able to see one, and then Shirabo was like, bye Museveni. I was like, you guy. Anyway, catch us and join the fun on our YouTube channel, which is UBC Television Uganda this morning. Be able to stream live with us and catch up with our conversations, and you can also comment in the section and give us your opinions and your views. We do have the newsreel coming up, and it's Friday. We get to round up all the stories that have been making headlines right from Monday until today. Which one are those? Well, we'll find out in the roundup for news for Good Morning Uganda agenda. Later on, of course, sports is going to be coming up, but allow us to go enjoy more of Muyenga International Hotel as we return from this song of the day.
This is Good Morning Uganda.